Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Hard Nine podcast. Today is Monday, April the 17th. I hope everyone had a fantastic Valentine's Day, NBA All Star, Saturday Night Live 50th weekend. And we have Nolan Arenado news as he showed up at spring training yesterday in good old Jupiter, Florida, and had a lot to say.
We finally have a resolution, it seems like. I think it's good that they've moved on from trading him. If you're not going to get it done, like you have to know what your team's going to look like. And I think it would be really bad for everybody involved, including Gorman, Arenado, Donovan, whoever this affects, to just continue going through spring training without having any clue what's going to happen. Like I don't think that's a good idea. Um, Mo seem to say he's not even trying to trade him anymore. They're just moving on. It didn't work. We can have a larger conversation at some point about how they completely failed everything they tried to do this offseason and did actually nothing. But um, I don't know. I'm kind of my opinions are wishy washy on him being back. Part of me's talked myself into it. Part of me says it's bad. I don't know. Where do you stand?
Well, okay, I had kind of have layers to this. So as far
Onion.
as, I mean, if you were going to have to spend and pay all of the money to get him off the contract, at some point it just behooves you as an organization to keep him around as long as he's not disgruntled. I mean, you saw a little disgruntledness in Nolan Arenado yesterday's comments, I thought, but it wasn't so much so that he looks miserable. So that's one.
Yeah, no,
Two,
we
what I
agree.
don't like is I don't think that they're going to play Lars Nootbaar in center field every day, which now creates another log jam potentially with your young players where they aren't free to run. So it just sort of feels like once again the Cardinals. I mean, I saw a thing the other day where they had listed the Cardinals as one of the top five organizations that had the worst offseason in Major League Baseball. I don't
Hmm.
see how anyone can argue with that.
You
Um,
can
they said they were going to do a retool, a rebuild, whatever, however you want to phrase it. Don't
reset,
care. Reset. There we go. That's even the
which
better
they've
RE word.
changed, by the way.
But they really aren't doing that at all. And it just, if you're not, in my opinion, Nolan Gorman probably came in thinking he was going to play third base every day. Not that he can't shift his mindset back to second base. I'm not saying that. But now are you prepared to go Brendan Donovan, Lars Nootbaar, and Jordan Walker in the outfield? Because if you're not, then that means one of your young guys will be DHing. And I understand that's okay at times, but it shouldn't be okay all the time. And that also now, what are we doing with Victor Scott and Michael Ciani? And again, Ciani's the least of my concerns, but you know what I'm saying. These are young
Yeah.
guys that we're told, hey, we're going to give them as many at bats as we can. Now all of a sudden you've got Nolan back, and is that something that you always do worry? I guess I've never been in a major league clubhouse like this, so I'm speaking from outside 35,000 feet. You do worry that if Nolan is a little disgruntled, how does that rub off on the young guys who already kind of know from his past comments that he doesn't love being in a clubhouse with all young guys?
Yeah, but he's gonna need to change that. That's for sure. That's the one criticism that I've really had of him. I I have a couple thoughts. One, the guy that this really affects, if everybody's healthy, I think is gonna be Alec Burleson. I don't think it's gonna be Gorman. I don't think it's gonna be Donovan. I think it's gonna be the guy that was batting second for you almost the entire year last year that's gonna end up not playing. And that's obviously not good. I Do you think we make too much of having too many guys in spring training? Because we talked about this last year when they signed Crawford and Carpenter. We said Burleson's not making the roster. How could he? And then he played every day because someone got
Right.
hurt. Like, I almost wonder if we as Cardinal fans think that guys need to be given, and that is the point of this year is to give guys like a clear runway. But like one injury and it all figures itself out
Right.
immediately.
I mean, I do think with the DH at bats, I mean Burleson, you can give Jordan Walker DH at bat. You can give a Nolan Gorman a day at the DH. Like there, you can
He's gonna have
finagle
to be
it.
there all the time if they want to play a center fielder in center field, and not Lars Nootbaar.
That is correct, and I don't love that. I don't love because I don't know how to, I don't know how much validity there is, but I have heard players talk about it's very easy to take bad offense or leave bad offense in the dugout when you're playing defense. Does that make sense? But when you're a DH
It's
and
for
all
some people,
you,
yeah.
it's not everyone, obviously, but there are players, and I worry about that with a young player who is trying to get his footing, who knows that the team is relying on him to be an offensive producer. That does concern me, but I don't know that. So that's all speculation and what ifs.
Yeah, I agree. Let's get to Arenado's comments. One, I think I'm kind of glad he's back, which I didn't think I was gonna get to this point because I kind of did want them to move on. But um, if you're not actually gonna reset, you're better with Nolan Arenado, so you might as well try to win 88 games. Like why not? The problem is they didn't do anything else to try and win 88 games, so there's no reason
That's
other than internal improvements, which we've talked about all offseason. If Jordan Walker's a league average hitter, that's a 40% improvement almost over what he did last year. That's a big boost in the outfield. Um, the one thing that I thought was interesting about it was a very serious tone to his press conference. I don't think he seemed angry, but to say he seemed happy would be a lie for sure. Um, he seemed very focused, and maybe that was like his intention was to come off that way. But man, like it's hard for me to not say that there's some percent chance that he's good this year. I'm not saying he's going to be great because if you look at his last 5 years by WRC plus or whatever you want to use, there's only 1 year he's been over 20%, and it was 2022. But that's
right.
five. That's 5 seasons. Now COVID, throw it out, whatever. Then say 4 seasons. That's fine. But he's only had 1 season where he's been Nolan Arenado. And but is there a possibility that he bounces back at least for the first half this year? Like I wouldn't throw it out completely. Like he's lighter. He's done a lot of training. And Mo said something that was funny. He said, the whole time I was in these negotiations, I was filled with dread because he's a Hall of Famer. And like Hall of Famers have the ability to have great years. Like they can do it. Albert Pujols did it at 48 or whatever he was. So I, there's part of me that's like, am I angry that I have to watch Nolan Arenado play third base for my favorite baseball team? Like that, I was like, I kind of looked in the mirror, I was like, what's wrong with you? Like you're gonna watch Nolan
Right.
Arenado for another year. Like at the very
It's not
least,
there's
we're gonna
first
watch a great player.
there's nothing wrong with you, but it is a microcosm of the frustration of an organization who can't even get a reset correct. That I don't think it's that I don't want to watch Nolan Arenado play for the Cardinals. I do. Like we were so pumped when he came here. We were so
Mm.
pumped in 2022. I remember being in the bleachers for that playoff game when the entire place was electric until it wasn't. And then the bottom
When he
dropped
hit
out.
a ball that should have been a home run and Bush came and
Correct.
killed it.
Like, so I think there is all of that, but I do think it is still a reflection on an organization that just can't get out of their own way at times. Now, it's very easy to also argue that Nolan kind of hamstrung them with the list of 5 or 6 or whatever it was. That is absolutely logical and true. Like, I am not arguing with
Yeah,
that.
there's
And
nothing they
I,
could do about it.
right. And I think it's also very true and honest that his decline potentially in performance has steered teams away from a Nolan Arenado at this point in his career.
It's exactly what's happened.
Right. And what I did like to hear him say was that he bulked up a little bit. He didn't really
No, he
need
said
to
he
lose
slimmed
weight.
down.
Yeah, but he also said he was in the weight room a lot, and that's what I meant by like he added muscle. And that he's real. And I also really appreciate. And no one's always going to be this way because he is who he is, and he is a Hall of Famer for a reason. But I also appreciate the fact that he was talking about did that he wished that the team was still going for it instead of in this sort of reset mindset, but that if he had played better over the last 2 years, they wouldn't be in this position. I appreciate that. He may not believe it, like, but he said it, and
I
that's
bet he
to
does.
me. I'm not saying he doesn't believe. Please say, let me understand. I am not putting intent behind his words. I believe what he said. I'm simply saying there is always the point that people do say things because it looks good optically. But I think if you're the Cardinals, here's the thing, and I'd like to get your take on this. I think it's almost a win-win now. That's how you have to view it moving forward. If he plays well and the team is crappy, right? Not win-win, win-win lose, right? If he plays well and the team is crappy, you could probably deal him at the deadline because people are always
Yeah.
going to look for bats, and we don't see a lot of impact bats usually getting dealt. Two, if he plays well and you're in it, okay, now we got something. The worst case scenario is that he doesn't play well. And then you're kind of just have to stuck with his contract for the next 2 years. But honestly, that's on you as an organization. And then you got to hope maybe in the offseason you just unload all of the contract to somebody for 2 years. Like I guess, so maybe it is a win win all the way across. I don't know.
There's a third scenario that's a
Well,
little
that
bit
was my
worse than
three.
all. Fourth scenario, sorry,
There we go.
that's a little bit worse, and that's if he's fine, not great, just fine, and then you're 3 games back by the trade deadline, and then you
Right.
have to decide what the hell you want to do.
Right.
Um, knowing how much they seem to have wanted to move on from him for whatever reason, because it seemed like they really wanted to get this done. if he's great and they're just kind of like maybe they're in the third wild card place or they're a half game back right at the deadline. So they're in it, and there's realistically like you're in it, just like they were last year. Do they trade him?
I don't know. I don't know that
Because it
answer.
might be your
I
last
honest,
chance.
yeah, I don't know that answer. I think the one thing you and I haven't spent a lot of time on talking because the Nolan Arenado stuff has really been um like peak and forth on the forefront of everyone's mind
Mhm.
is the fact that we are talking about the offense quite a bit and the fact that they could be good at which would keep them in it. But one thing we haven't spent a lot of time on is that after Sonny Gray, I don't know how pitchers will keep us in games if we're going to be really honest. And so I
I
think that's got to be one thing that at some point we probably need to address a little bit on here. But I think right now, obviously, Nolan's that's the news. But I think that's got to be a concern. It's hard to
I'm not
envision
concerned.
that rotation thinking they're going to keep you to where you can win 88 games. I'm going to be really honest.
I think 3/5. I like 3/5 of the rotation. I like Palante a lot. I think he's good. And I think Eric Fetty is just a good starter. I don't think he's a great starter. I think he's a good starter. I don't think he's going to fall off the face of the earth. If he's a 4.2 ERA, that's fine. That's a starter that's going to keep you in most games. We saw with Gibson last year. We saw with Lance Lynn for the most part last year. Um, the problem with the rotation is going to be if Matz or Michaelis, either or and more likely are bad, how willing are they to move on? Because the thing that's interesting to me is they're starting 10 starters in spring. All of them, all of them are knocking on the doorstep or already in the major league rotation or have already made major league starts. Now, here's what we're going to need to see first. If McGreevy has a great spring and they've talked him up about how good he looks, then he needs to be in the rotation. I don't care who you hurt. I just don't. If you want to have any form of, and I wonder if not trading Arenado makes him a bit more aggressive in that because at least they could say they did something to try and move the future forward. Because if you have a rotation with Matz and Michaelis in it, you have Arenado still here, Sonny Gray still here, Wilson Contreras still here, you did nothing different. It's the same team.
Nothing.
The only thing
Yeah.
let happen was Gibson and Lynn walk, which by the way is the funniest thing about last offseason, looking back, how they had to rush to sign those two. They're still free agents right now. And and also like Goldie is in New York without a beard, and that just makes me sad. But I I don't know. I don't I think Michaelis is just he needs to not pitch a game, but he will. Mats, I can convince myself Mats will be good when he pitches, if he pitches. Like not good, but fine. Like fine enough
Yeah.
to he'll have starts where he goes 6 and gives up none. He'll have starts where he goes 5 and gives up 4. You can win some of those games. But for Michaelis, if he's bad, he goes 3 and gives up 8 and you lost.
Do you think that there's any chance in hell that they have an incredibly short leash with Miles Michaelis and Steven Matz if they are in the rotation? Or do
Steven
you
Matz,
think that
yes.
they will have talked themselves into we have to justify the contracts and the extensions and the money we're spending to allow this guy to stay in there? Because let's say that those are the five that you go in with. Palante,
Mhm.
Gray, Fetty, Matz Michaelis, which all right, let's just say that. And at AAA, you've got Graceffo, McGreevy, and Matthews just like pitching lights out. This is obviously again what about isms
That'd be
and it's
awesome.
correct. That there will be a little pushback, maybe from Hein Bloom, maybe from Ollie, maybe from anyone else in the organization, maybe from Nolan to say, look, we got two guys with almost a 6 ERA and Steven Matz and Miles Michaelis, and we got like, do you think that they will have a short leash potentially with those guys, or do you think they're in it with the long haul with them just to justify their own jobs? Which, by the way, Mo is leaving.
Historically speaking, in the last year of contracts, Mo has pulled the plug on things. Johnny
Right.
Peralta, Dexter Fowler, we've seen it. There's probably more examples out there. Brett Cecil, right? I don't know, and it's gonna be interesting to see if he operates differently at all in his last year, right? Like if he's more aggressive to try and get things going, because at the end of the day, I don't think Mo wants to have a bad last year, regardless of what anyone says. I don't think he was incredibly sad that his two best signings he's probably ever had stayed. To be honest with you, I don't think that hurt him, at least not ever. But you know what I mean. Um, I don't know. I it's interesting. Like what are the odds that I don't think those two either finish the rotation and finish the season in the rotation? I think Matt's is easier because they have an out with him. We've seen him in the bullpen. They've been willing to do it. He's ended up in the bullpen, Dad, every season he's been here, and he's been here for 3 years.
And has
So
been pretty good.
yeah, I mean, yeah, he's fine. He's definitely like he could be a high leverage reliever if he has the stuff to do that. For Michaelis, I just don't know. Like if you have Fetty and Gray's not an innings eater, so they don't really have an innings eater. But Fetty can get 180 innings. Gray can probably get to 180 innings if he makes every start. I just don't think they should be concerned about eating innings because they have like 7 starters right there that they can just put into the rotation. Like we haven't even talked about Drew Rom. We haven't even
Right.
talked about. I don't think Liberatore should ever make a start again, just because I don't think it's good for him, at least this year. Zach Thompson's still there. Like they have
PK
options if they
Roby.
want it. Yeah, that'd be rushing him a bit if he's ready. He's had injury problems.
Right.
T. Kent's like at the end of the year, if you need like it'd be tough for me to imagine T. Kent's making a lot of starts in a row for this team because he just hasn't built up the innings to be able to do that yet. But you have options to where if you're struggling for innings, you don't have to go get, you know, J.A. Happ and John Lester. You have guys that can step into that role.
I missed the
Tim
J.A.
Robersa,
Haps and John Lester era.
they got us to the playoffs. Kudos to those
Right.
two.
Right. I just hope that they don't do something dumb, which in the past they have, where they put a McGreevy or a Graceffo in the bullpen. Like you just can't do that. Hopefully they've
I think
learned their
those are two
lesson.
different cases. I think Graceffa should be in the bullpen. I think
Oh,
McGreevy should
okay.
be in the
Well, I'd
rotation.
like to see him
Graceffa's
stretch out, but
velo, he after some injuries, his velo's just he can't
okay.
sustain it through 6 innings.
Okay.
Like some guys just get to that point. Like he's at this point, he's been in AAA for almost 3 years now. Like at some point, you have to accept who he is and maybe move on. I feel the same way about Libertor. Those guys have been given opportunities to be starters. Libertor kind of fake opportunities. But if those two guys just put them in the bullpen and say, you guys are relievers for this year, we'll worry about
Do
next year when it comes.
do the games start this coming weekend?
Saturday, I believe.
That's what I thought.
Saturday,
So
Sunday.
that's going to be interesting to see, and we'll dig in a little bit more. Maybe we can get
Fetty's taking
Kareem
game one.
on here
Let's
because I want
go.
who is.
Fetty.
I'm
And
intrigued
Matthews
to
is
see how
starting
this.
soon.
And it's one thing we also haven't talked about is I want to. We really haven't dug into what the bullpen's going to look like, and I think it's because we don't know. Like I think we know some of it, but
We
I
know
don't
most
think.
of it.
Yeah, but I think it's going to depend on that Steven Matz and maybe like
Yeah,
you said, Grisefo, and maybe there's another Libert. Like I think he'll be in the bullpen, but I
he'll
think
be
it's
in
going to
there.
be interesting to see. I mean, how many lefties are they going to have?
Well, right now I would say guaranteed JoJo, Libertor, and King, right? So if
Right,
Matz is, I mean, I don't have any problem telling John King not to be in the bullpen. I know he had a good year last year. I just don't care.
right.
Um, guess who took Quinn Matthews deep last night or yesterday
Who?
during live BPs? Guess.
Who? I don't know.
He's on the team. He's at
Victor
one of the
Scott.
players. No, he's not on the team yet. Pedro Pajes, Avo Taco. Good for him. He's
Oh,
apparently a good guy. He was signing autographs for like 30 minutes
I'm
yesterday.
sure he's an
We
awesome dude. Like I have no doubt
we
about
kind
that.
of the players seem to be happy Nolan Arenado's back, which it doesn't surprise me at all.
No, me neither.
Maybe we have overstated a bit how his lack of leadership's been. I don't think he's like outwardly a bad leader where he's like, telling young guys not to talk to him or saying like, doing those things you see in like Mr. 3000 where Bernie Mac's just like the biggest asshole to every single person he comes in contact with. I don't think he's that, but I do think it's more of he's just hyper focused on what he has to do. But he seems to really be loved by his players, and that's not. I mean, that's always a good thing by his teammates. Like to have him back, and maybe he takes on more of a leadership role this year. Maybe, or maybe he's so focused that he doesn't. That's also possible. He's like, screw this. I can't get
Right.
traded to any of the teams I want to go to. He also made a comment that I thought was interesting, where Mo said earlier this week, if we're gonna trade him after Bregman signed, then he's gonna have to his list is gonna have to get bigger. And he came out and they asked me, he's like, no, it's not getting bigger. He's like, I have a
Yeah.
family. There's only 4 or 5 teams that I would be willing to move my family for, which
Yeah.
one
I
shows that he doesn't hate St. Louis. So I don't think
right.
he's that unhappy. If he was, he'd be willing to consider a Detroit or a Kansas City, which the funniest thing to me, Dad, why are all these writers in St. Louis acting like those two teams have such a better chance than the Cardinals to be good? They don't. The
Yeah, I
the
agree.
Royals are one Bobby Wood Jr. injury, knock on wood, away from
Right.
winning 50 games. I'm
Yeah.
not even kidding. They'd be one of the worst lineups in baseball immediately.
Yeah.
Like the Tigers are one Tarek Skubal, once again, knock on wood, injury away from winning 60 games.
Yeah. We agree. We agree with that. Um,
At
yeah,
least
I
the
think it's
Cardinals don't
gonna
have a
be
star that can get injured.
I think it's gonna be interesting that you now have him back. I'm really intrigued to see how we play this. I'm really intrigued to see if Larson's up in center field. I'm intrigued to see what they do there. There's a lot of stuff that Ollie's and upper management and his coaches are gonna have to figure out because you need those guys playing every day. And I do think again the DH does help you and give you some flexibility. You can put Wilson at the DH a few days if you want to play Burley at first. You can flip flop those if you need to. I think this all but seals the fact that Luke and Baker will not be on this team. So can we go ahead and trade him to somebody where he
He'll be
might be
on
able
it.
to
I
play?
think he'll be on it.
You think so?
Well, if you look at their lineup, the guys that are guaranteed to be in it outside of Burley, who I think they're going to try to get Burley in as much as they can, I think. Now we'll have to see. It all depends on Newpart and center field or not. But let's just say Newpart is in center field for some games because I would imagine he gets some run out there. You have Newpart, Gorman, Donovan. Who am I missing lefty wise? I'm missing someone.
Burley.
Burley. That's 4 lefties in your lineup. That's a lot of opportunity to give Baker a pinch hit opportunity.
I agree. I just don't know. What do you think happens with Thomas Ajacey? Is he your backup infielder?
He'd be in AAA for me. I think people
That
have
poor,
overstated Thomas JC. He wasn't very good last year.
I mean, small sample size,
No,
but yes.
he was not good in AAA.
Yeah.
So if you want to get a spot in the major leagues, maybe be good in AAA.
Well, would they
Then you
sign
get a
that
spot.
Hellman kid, right? You think he'll be on the team?
Yeah, that's who I would put in it.
Yeah, me too.
But I wouldn't. He'd be Taylor Motter for me. Like he just wouldn't be playing. Like no offense to him, you're making a big league paycheck. Congrats, kid. You went to the right organization to do that.
Right, right. Yeah, that's going to be an
Maybe he's
interesting
good.
thing there.
Probably not.
I hope Luke and Baker. I hope you're right because I've been one of the guys who said give him a chance to get
There's no reason not to put
a
him on the
couple
bench.
hundred at bats at least, just because of the damage he can do, and even late in the game if you need to get. We've got flexibility with Nolan coming back. You got player flexibility there. Like get him some at bats late in the game against tough lefties. That's what we need to do.
Yeah, I also think he's in a good spot here. Not that I mean, maybe not a great spot because if he was in another organization, maybe he'd be starting. But he's in a good spot because the Cardinals can afford with their starting lineup to have 3 righties on the bench.
Yeah,
they can afford
that's
that
true.
because that's almost what they need. They don't need any lefties on the bench outside of Ciani if he's not starting or Burleson if Ciani is starting, whatever that looks like.
I haven't looked at the full list, but are you sort of shocked that Gibson and Lynn aren't on a roster? Are you sort of shocked that Paul DeYoung and Whit Merrifield aren't on a
Paul
roster?
DeYoung is.
Like, huh?
He signed with the Nationals yesterday. Paul DeYoung.
Who did?
DeYoung.
Oh, okay. I missed it. I saw yesterday morning. I saw the list, so I missed that.
He signed yesterday. Yeah, good for him.
Oh.
But am I surprised that 2 older starters that? No, I'm not surprised because baseball, and this is going to be, I would assume, something in the CBA that I hope the players' union attempts to address. They've squeezed out the middleman completely.
They
They just have. And I get that every year Scott Boras and Tony Clark want to fight for the Juan Sotos and but the reality is Juan Soto's always going to get paid an insane amount of money. Like those guys always get paid. They never looking for jobs. But the middle guys, I mean, they've been completely squeezed out of baseball because all these teams are spending so big on Juan Soto that they have to cut somewhere. So they'd rather go with a young 5-starter than an experienced one.
And it's funny with no salary cap, but with a salary cap, the NFL is talking about the same thing about them squeezing out those aging vets who are going to be on that middle of the road contract. You know, they're going high and low. That's what they're doing. And I think the NBA's done the same thing as well.
It's all optics for the players union, right? Like you want to be able to say that the sport's healthy and point to Juan Soto's $750 million contract to prove that players are getting good contracts. What you don't want to do is point to Lance Lynn, who most definitely is a top 150 starter in Major League Baseball and should be on some roster somewhere, and that he's not getting a job.
Yeah, I'm honestly more shocked that Kyle Gibson doesn't have a job just than Lance Lynn. I think. Now, I know Lance said he'd go to the bullpen. I thought I saw something about people talking about an article about him potentially going to a bullpen somewhere. I'm intrigued. He might just hang it up and go fish. Who knows?
He doesn't want to, from what he just had an interview the other day.
He might not have an option, is what I'm saying.
One injury in spring training and he'll get a call.
Yeah, I agree.
Here's what I would do if I was the Cardinals. I would tell Michaelis that he's not pitching for me anymore. I would tell Steven Matz he can either go to the bullpen or he can also not be pitching for me anymore. And if I'm done, I'm really shopping him right now because especially like in 3 weeks, teams are going to be needing starting pitching. That's why those two probably aren't too concerned right now. They're keeping themselves ready, I would guess. They'll get jobs. And then I would sign Kyle Gibson and I would put McGreevy in the rotation. And then that's a way better 5 than what they have right now.
Yeah. They're not going to do that, but we agree.
Why not? Like, why not? Why aren't you doing something like at this point? Try to win. Like you're not trying to reset anymore. They're now
rather have
calling it a transition
in the rotation.
I don't think they would rather. I just don't get it. The sunk cost fallacy has this organization heard of it? You're spending
no, I don't
the money.
think so.
So why would you spend that Michaelis is $18 million this year to lose more games when you could spend that anyway? You're still
Yeah.
spending it and win more games with someone better.
Yeah. You and I both agree, and I think
But it
probably
just
the
doesn't
majority
make.
of people listening
What's the
agree.
logic?
I think it's simply the one person that matters doesn't agree.
I don't. Do you think if Mo went to DeWitt and said we're DFAing Michaelis and giving McGreevy his spot, and DeWitt would have a stroke? I don't know if he'd care that much.
I don't think so,
Why would he
but
care? It's an extra seven
right.
hundred thousand dollars.
Yep.
Like,
Agreed.
well, I don't know. Oh, also, Lars Newbar. Did you see what Brendan Donovan said? We didn't talk about this
I,
yet.
I did not.
So Donnie talked after a couple days ago after his ARB hearing, which he lost, which is a joke. Um, and he's said that then they didn't even try to give him. Not only did they not try to give him a multi-year extension, which doesn't surprise me because apparently Mo doesn't have Heimblum's phone number. We've established that this offseason. But also they didn't even try to come to an agreement for the 1 year for arbitration. They didn't even try. He said they didn't even talk to him about it. Which is, by the way, when people were arguing with me about how, dude, well, it's just a system. No, teams don't do that, dude. Teams don't
Correct.
do that.
Yeah.
Like,
People who do that,
I
people who
don't,
say that just don't know what they're talking
you know
about. You
who
know
does that?
that.
John Fisher. John
Yeah.
Fisher does that.
Right.
I just, why would you ever like be dead set on going to an arbitration hearing with one of your best players?
Yep. Agreed.
Like, you can't just, like, he seemed to make it sound like if they just would have called him and like said, hey, let's go in the middle, he would have said, okay. And you know what's even funnier? Like, people are like, well, what do you just want to pay him whatever? If they went in the middle with all three of these guys, let's say all three guys were willing to just cut the difference and meet in the middle, they would have saved money because they lost 2 of 3 cases.
Right.
So
Right.
shut up about the business side of things. They're not
Yeah.
doing business well either. They're doing
No,
everything
they're
poorly.
not. That's the scary part. That's what I go back to. That I can see better play from players on the field. I just don't. It's bad. It's really bad right now, and I just hope that it gets better. But I don't foresee it.
I mean, to me, I've just decided that Mo and DeWitt, they're just background at this point. I mean, the players on the field, can the team. It, when was the last time 5 starters made it out of spring training? Like all 5 for the
Maybe
Cardinals.
last year.
Sonny Gray was hurt.
Oh, that's right. He missed. He only missed the start
I
though.
was looking back. I don't think it's been. No, he missed 3. I don't think it's been for like almost 10 years.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
just
But
gotta hope it's not the wrong guy that gets
that's
injured.
I was thinking the exact same thing. We agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Just not Sonny Gray, Eric Fetty, or Andre Palante. I'll leave you
Right.
to figure out the rest of the names.
All right. Anything else you need to talk about with the Cardinals? We need to get to.
Not with the Cardinals, no. I think I'm hopeful. I hope they get off to a good start.
Me too.
Like if they get off to a good start, who knows? If they get off to a bad start, it could go bad, like really bad.
Are you
We've
going
seen
to
that
opening
2 years in a
day?
row. I'm looking at the prices. If they're, I have a feeling it's not going to be. I don't think it's. I think there's going to be some empty seats on opening day. I would guess. Maybe Arenado helps out a bit. If it's within reason, I might go.
Is
But
that the week? Yeah, that's
March
Do they?
26th, I think.
Yeah. 27th, I think. I think it's the 27th.
Yeah,
I think that's when they open. The
the day
other two
earlier than
games
normal.
are in Tokyo with the Cubs and Dodgers.
Yeah, Shota versus Yamamoto. Is that
Yeah,
what it? No, yeah, I think so. Yeah,
I
to
think
start
so.
off.
That'll be interesting. All right. Well, I don't have anything else to get to other than we are going to now try to be on a schedule with at least 2 Cardinal podcasts a week. And then starting soon, we're going to try and bring a third podcast where we kind of hit a lot of stuff around the league. Feels like we've garnered and gathered some baseball fans who aren't just Cardinal fans. And I think a lot of our people are that way anyway. So yes, we will keep up with at least the 2 podcasts a week with the Cardinal talk, but we're going to try and add in, some more baseball talk around the league because baseball's fantastic and there's a lot of great stuff going on in the league. And I feel like a lot of times we leave a lot of stuff out that we just don't have time for.
Yeah, and I have 2 things actually from around the league that both are Los
Yeah.
Angeles Angels things. Funny enough, one, Anthony Rendon, worst contract of all time, correct?
Yes.
Okay, he's has hip surgery now because why wouldn't he? Um, and
Hold on.
secondly,
Before you get to secondly, I saw one of the greatest Anthony Rendon stats I've ever seen. That since leaving the Nationals have had 18 starting third basemen since they let Anthony Rendon go. Since joining the Angels have had 28 different third basemen since they signed Anthony Rendon.
it's incredible. And I mean, can you even name 2 of the Nationals third basemen? Trey Lipscomb and who? I couldn't tell you.
Well, who is it now? Like, I don't even know who the third baseman is
Lipscomb.
now. Okay,
It's
then no,
Lipscomb.
I
I
couldn't.
would guess Larry Garcia started 1 game there. That would be my guess. I don't
Yeah,
know.
but 18, because that sounds terrible. But when you figure the team you went to has 28, that's even better.
Yeah, and the Nationals probably haven't lost all that many more games. And then lastly, also the funniest Angel stat of all time, they've never lost 100 games in a season,
I
ever.
know. They're the only team in Major League Baseball history, I believe, to not have lost 100 games.
And they'll lose 95 every year, but they will never lose 100. They just won't do it.
Nope.
Also, does it make you incredibly sad that Mike Trout's no longer playing center field? Because it makes me really sad.
Yeah, smart for him though.
I'd like to see someone do a study or a research, because I'm not going to do it because I'm too lazy, on how much of a difference there is between injuries in center field to injuries and people in the corners. Because I think we might overstate it. This is also relevant to Lars Newbar's conversation as well.
Well, I do know that somebody put out the number, and I don't remember the numbers, so I probably shouldn't even speak on it. But I do remember seeing the thing about just the difference in uh, distance covered when you
Yeah,
play
that's the
center
difference.
field
Yeah.
versus the corner. That's the big one. And that after a while does wear on your legs. I guarantee. I mean, nobody covers
Hmm.
more distance in any position than a center fielder. So
Right. But if you're Lars Newbar, he hasn't had a ton of hamstring problems, knock on wood. So the running hasn't been really the problem. It's him running into walls. Maybe put him in center field where there's less walls to run into.
I mean, Griffey had. I mean, every injury Griffey had was from playing too hard. Like, there's no doubt about it.
Griffey's injuries were from breaking his ankle while jumping on a wall, right? Like
Or
that's what
his
he was
wrist,
doing.
either one. Yeah.
But he wasn't like tearing hamstrings in the
No,
gap.
that's what I'm saying. Like his were like playing too hard. It wasn't
Right.
soft tissue stuff.
Which he would have been doing in right field.
They
Right.
well, they
So
told him to rein it back, and he's like, I can't play that
you
way.
can't. And
Like,
that's why people
yeah,
are like, we'll just tell Lars to like not go as hard. Like you can't tell a major league player
no,
to do that.
and you don't want him to do like you don't
Bryce
want
Harper
that.
broke his neck running into a wall. Do we remember this?
Right,
Which, by
right,
the way,
yep,
that was dumb. The ball was like
yeah,
15 rows deep, and he just ran
right,
straight into the
right,
wall.
right,
But
yeah.
like
All right.
you can't control players like that
So you're
unless
coming
you're
down
Tyler
next
O'Neill.
week. You're coming down here next week, right? Not this week. Next week.
Um,
Yeah, next week.
yes.
Okay. All right. It's supposed to be
Yes.
cold this weekend for Mardi Gras. Next weekend looks like 70s. So
Okay, good. We're going up to
yeah,
Chicago this weekend.
you're going to Chicago?
Yeah, for Grace's birthday
Oh, where?
with her dad and her stepmom.
Are you staying River North area, or do you know?
We're staying right by the Loop downtown.
Yeah, that's there you go. That's where we stay too.
Yeah,
Have fun.
we're going this weekend, and then I think we're going up Friday, and we're coming back Sunday.
That'll be a blast. I love that city. It'll be cold there, but I love that
I
city.
know, I know. It's
I
gonna be so
told I
cold.
was we were talking to some friends the other night, and I said if I had an infinite amount of money, I would live down here 7 months out of the year, and I would live up there in Chicago 5 months of the year. That's what I would do.
I would choose San Diego personally, but you do you.
Yeah, I mean I get it, but I love Chicago and I love this city. So
I do too.
yep. All
I'm
right,
just
well let's
hoping
get
that they
out of
don't want
here,
to
and
get
we'll be
deep dish
back this
pizza.
week. Do what?
I'm just hoping they don't want to get deep dish pizza because that shit's ass.
I like it. I'm a Chicago.
God,
It's
it's so
pizza,
bad.
dude. If it's pizza, I'm on it, and I like Chicago style
It's
pizza. It's
not
not my
pizza.
favorite.
It's soup. It's a soup.
It's a
It's
lasagna.
a
That's what
gross
it
soup
is.
with cornmeal. I hate it. It's so
Go
it's
get a
so
steak. Go
bad.
get some pasta. That's what you need to do in Chicago.
Yeah, if they get pizza, I'm getting pasta. I think that's what I've decided.
There you go. There you go. All right. Well, let's get out of here. Well, we'll be back before you go to Chicago, probably. Maybe we'll do one. Yeah, we'll have to do
Yeah, I'm
one
sure we'll
before
have
games
an
start, I would
update from
assume.
something.
Yeah.
Arenado will
Guys,
punch Mo in the face or something, and we'll have an
let's
update on him
hope that
again.
that does not happen, or let's hope that it does, whichever side you want to
That would
lie
be
on
great
there.
for
I'm okay.
business.
Yeah. Well.
Not for
All
his,
right,
not for their
everybody. Thank you
business.
so much for joining us. If you're on that radio side or on that podcast side, hit that old follow button on Apple or Spotify. If you're on the YouTube side, if you would subscribe, we would greatly appreciate that. Keep those comments coming, and we will be back soon. Go Cards.